Maria Jesus Montero, caught out, admitted in the Senate that the former president of SEPI, Vicente Fernandez, has been under investigation since 2021, the year she spent a vacation with him at a hotel in Cabo de Gata in Almeria. Let's get started. Hello everyone and welcome to a new edition of Medidas Cautelares. And pay close attention because Maria Jesus Montero is cornered. She's been caught out after the exclusive story we've reported in Medidas Cautelares and in Libertad Digital because of her personal relationship with the former president of SEPI, Vicente Fernandez. And I won't get tired of repeating it, we don't care about her personal life. Now, if her personal life influences a corruption scheme that's being investigated in the National Court, then that is relevant. And that's the purpose of the information and the exclusive I told you about last week here on Medidas Cautelares, and that I also told you about. I published the exclusive interview we did with the witness who saw Maria Jesus Montero in that summer of 2021. In August 2021, sharing a room with Vicente Fernandez, former president of SEPI, who is also under investigation in a case at the National Court. Well, today we're providing more information about this matter, which I find very relevant, because in the end, what you say ends up making you a slave to your own words. And Maria Jesus Montero said in the Senate a few months ago that Vicente Fernandez has been under investigation since 2021 and that she had dismissed him from SEPI in 2019, so what happened in 2021 didn't affect her. Of course, it didn't affect her. She didn't know that we were going to reveal exclusively that in 2021 she spent her vacation with him. She didn't know that, and that's why she said that in the Senate. We're going to share all the information, of course, the video of Maria Jesus Montero in the Senate, so you don't miss a single detail. But before anything else, of course, remember to subscribe to the Medidas Cautelares channel. If you want, we've already surpassed 129,000, we're almost at 130,000, and the goal, as you know, is to reach 150,000, 50,000 some say. But you, what do you collect? Subscribers? Or do you give us news? Well, I bring you the news, but obviously, for the channel to keep growing, we need to have more and more subscribers, right? Anyway, we're on a roll. And we already have this information about Maria Jesus Montero on the screen. I think the photo is very expressive, isn't it? Caught, cornered, the former Minister of Finance, former Vice President of Pedro Sanchez's government. Well, after that exclusive story we've reported on Medidas Cautelares and Libertad Digital, which of course leaves her in a very, very bad position. So, pay attention to what we're about to tell you now because it's definitely worth hearing. And that's because the former Vice President of the government and former Minister of Finance, Maria Jesus Montero, admitted it in the Senate. That the former president of SEPI, Vicente Fernandez, is being investigated by the Central Operative Unit of the Civil Guard, UCO, as part of the SEPI scheme. Since 2021, Libertad Digital and Medidas Cautelares exclusively published, as I was telling you, last week an interview with a witness who reported to the Civil Guard that Montero was staying at a hotel in Cabo de Gata, Almeria, as a couple with the former president of SEPI. These events took place precisely between August 16 and 19, 2021. That is, they spent their vacation together the same year, the very same year, in which Vicente Fernandez was already under investigation. Being investigated by the UCO in the context of the SEPI scheme, where agents of the Civil Guards UCO are investigating irregularities in SEPI contracts. So you see how important this is. What did Maria Jesus Montero say during a session held in the Senate on January 15th? I mean, we're talking about just the day before yesterday, barely 4 months ago. 4 months ago, what was Maria Jesus Montero saying? What about the Senate? Well, let's share the video so you can listen to her and see for yourselves. How is she admitting it exactly? Well, that in that year, 2021, she says he was no longer president of SEPI. Of course, she didn't know, as I told you, that we were going to publish that in that year she was going to share rooms. Let's share this video on screen now so you can listen to it firsthand.
That's why, ladies and gentlemen, when we are called to this podium to talk about the possible involvement in alleged cases of corruption, with the work, with the activity that had been carried out in the SEPI business group, It is advisable and important for us to know all the controls and methods that this company has so that operations can be carried out in full compliance with the law. But above all, ladies and gentlemen, senators, what is striking is that the People's Party is calling for the vice presidents to appear today for a period, that of the period from 2021 to 2023, according to all the media outlets. A period that is being investigated by the UCAO, during which it had already been 2 years since the president of SEPI, Vicente Fernandez, had left this company. Therefore, the events being investigated by the UCO do not coincide with the time when the people under investigation were working at SEPI, but rather those events allegedly took place afterwards. That is how they are pointing to the period being analyzed between the years 2021 and 2023, 2 years after this had happened. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, my presence here today is to provide explanations, to be accountable for investigations that are classified as secret, under seal, in which we have no more information than what is presented in the media itself. I cannot go beyond everything I have previously mentioned to you.
Well, there you had it. The former Deputy Prime Minister and former Minister of Finance, Maria Jesus Montero, in the Senate last January 15th. And simply, let's go over the dates that Maria Jesus Montero mentioned. Because I think what Maria Jesus Montero said is very relevant to put it into context now. She always hides behind the fact that Vicente Fernandez was dismissed from SEPI in 2019. And that, of course, since 2019, she no longer has any responsibility for anything Vicente Fernandez has done because he was no longer president of SEPI. What's going on? Well, the UKO is actually investigating the period when Vicente Fernandez was no longer president of SEPI, specifically from 2021 onwards, because Vicente Fernandez was the shadow president of SEPI, even though he was officially dismissed by Maria Jesus Montero in 2019. Well, since they had such a close relationship, he continued, he kept being, well, that shadow president of SEPI, and that's exactly what the UCO is looking into as part of the case. SEPI, which is being investigated for the rigging of contracts and contract awards worth more than 130 million euros, relates to the years 2021 to 2023. And of course, what we have exclusively revealed on Medidas Cautelares is that in August 2021, Maria Jesus Montero stayed at the same hotel, vacationed together, and shared a room with Vicente Fernandez. And Maria Jesus Montero herself, as you just heard, admits that in 2021 Vicente Fernandez was already under investigation and that he was no longer president of SEPI. He was not president of SEPI, but he was, well, according to what the witness claims, which we have published in Medidas Cautelares and in Libertad Digital. In that year 2021, at that time he was not president of SEPI, but he shared a room with you, former minister and PSOE candidate for Andalusia's regional government, who, by the way, has only lost 2 seats. The Socialist Party is at a historic low, but the truth is that in the end, no matter what is said, we reveal what we reveal and the corruption that runs rampant throughout Spain, and Mrs. Montero has only lost 2 seats. The truth is that what happens in Spain, if anyone understands it, please explain it to me, because after the last elections I don't understand anything anymore. Let's briefly recall what that witness actually said in the interview we published in Libertad Digital and Medidas Cautelares. In the exclusive interview, the witness stated that Montero and Fernandez shared a room and lived as a couple at the Hotel Las Salinas de Cabo de Gata in Almería. The witness said that the then Minister of Finance would start launching into political speeches for no reason, even at breakfast, and was accompanied by a gentleman. Curious about the gentleman, we asked at the hotel and learned he was a former high-ranking executive of the Junta de Andalucía. We remember that Vicente Fernandez, in fact, before presiding over SEPI, was the general auditor of the Junta. As the days went by, the witness said, I realized that it was Mr. Fernandez Guerrero. I don't understand why Montero told all the citizens that he hadn't had any further contact with this man after dismissing him as president of SEPI. According to the witness, Montero shared a vacation and a room with Fernandez at the Las Salinas Hotel in Cabo de Gata, and he didn't understand why the then minister denied it. They interacted exactly the same way I do with my wife, said the witness. The relationship of a couple spending a few days on vacation in a small hotel right on the beach in a discreet, very pleasant place. And that's the exclusive information we're reporting, along with this new detail we're putting on the table, and that seems very relevant because Montero himself is acknowledging that the UCO has been investigating Vicente Fernandez from 2021 to 2023. Well, former minister and vice president of the government, you will have to give explanations. Why were you sharing a room and vacationing together that summer? Well, during those hot August days at the Hotel Las Salinas de Cabo de Gata with the former president of SEPI, Vicente Fernandez. Because this, of course, is not because we're interested in her private life, which we are not interested in at all. This is relevant to the investigation being carried out by the head of the Central Investigative Court Number 5 of the Audiencia Nacional, Santiago Pedraz, and also by the Guardia Civil's Unidad Central Operativa, UCO. That's it for this edition of Medidas Cautelares. I hope you enjoyed it. Of course, you already know that you can become members of Medidas Cautelares, like the chosen ones for less than €3 a month, or like the supreme ones for less than €7 a month. You can also make contributions via Bizum at the phone number 627-556370, 627-556370. Thank you all so much for your support for this exclusive and for all the congratulations I've received from you these past few days. Because even though it may seem unbelievable to you, some colleagues don't understand the information and it had to be explained to them. And even then, well, no, they still didn't want to understand it. But you here on Medidas Cautelares, you understood it from the very beginning. And I appreciate all your support, all your encouraging messages, for having the best information that isn't shared in other media outlets and of course on other YouTube channels. That's why we created Medidas Cautelares. The most important thing is that this information reaches everyone because information is power. See you soon.